One of the great features of the Swing Toolkit by updown.com is the ability to create custom patterns, but it is a bit of a complicated process, so I wanted to create a second video that shows another example of going through the process of creating a potential a custom pattern. So say you have this chart here. Right now there's nothing displayed by our auto pattern finder because there's nothing currently valid. So say you're looking at this swing here, this swing here, you got this pullback here, and then you have potential reversal down here. Now, to make our job much easier, instead of measuring all this out by hand, I'm going to use our drawing tool, go from point C down to where we want point X to be, just to give us, for it to do our measurements for us. Now, as we can see right here, there was a valid pattern, but you can see it hit the target and then ended up being stopped out. So that's why our automatic pattern finder wasn't outputting it, is because this pattern is currently not valid anymore. But our drawing tool will show us what, based on what we're telling it, what was there. So we want to temporarily hide this particular pattern because we want it to act like there's absolutely nothing there. So I'm going to go into the parameters, let me back up, click on the pattern definitions here, and I'm going to go to that particular pattern and I'm going to disable it. I'm going to hit OK, hit refresh. Okay, so there you go. So now there's completely no valid patterns because we want to be able to see all of these numbers here in order to create our custom pattern. So go back into the properties. I'm going to move this out of the way so we can actually see our chart, because this is going to cover up our chart. Go to edit patterns. Now from here I'm going to this was the pattern that it was closest to, so I'm going to select that before I click add, just to get us a better starting point. I'm going to enable it. Go to call it whatever you want. Now this is the market analyzer ID that will be used when setting up these columns to make them appear the way they are down here. So this needs to be unique. So we see that we have already 8 patterns defined. This will be number 9. So next we want to set our XAB retracement. In this case, 46.18 falls within this range here. Now we can tighten this up a little bit by setting the tolerance to 0. Otherwise, if the tolerance of 5 means that it is the equivalent of this being 38 minus 5, which would be 33, to 55. That would be the equivalent of having a tolerance of 0 and then having these as such. So you could do it that way, or you could simply tighten this up even more and say, it's 38.2 to 50, which this will fall under. So you have to kind of play with it and try to be as logical as possible and tight as possible, but not so tight that it never gets found. Next is the ABC retracement from ABC. We see is 85.34. The current settings does fall within that range. And again, you can set an additional tolerance there. Next is the BCD projection. We see a 292 right there. So we need to basically define a range here that will fall under. So for example, you could say 261.8 to you could say 300, but that might be a little tight, but 300 would fall within that range. Next is this X to A down to D retracement, and that is, you can see it's a 121. Now we just want this line to fall within this range here. So we don't necessarily want that to be super exact. In this case, I would go with like a 113. I think would make sense. And then the targets are measured by going from C down to the lowest price that price moves, and then retracing to the 382 or retracing to the 618. That's what those are here. And you can define a third target if you want, or even clear out the second target and make it just have a single target. The stop is measured from X to A down to D, or down to where you want the stop to be. So you want this to be beyond where your XAD is, because obviously if that's where you're kind of getting in, you want your stop to be beyond that. And in general, you just look for what's the next major Fibonacci number beyond where you are. And so in this case, the 38.2, or maybe even the 150. We just have to kind of play with it and see how it lays out. All right, so I think I have all this accurate. I'm going to hit OK. So now I have 9 defined patterns here from originally 8. Hit OK. Go right click and refresh my chart, and there you go. It found my pattern, and it also, as you can see, the automatic pattern finder found it as well. So I can now remove this drawing tool, and you can see that the automatic pattern finder found it, and it outputted all the levels based on what we just told it, that these swings fit within our definitions, and we have the name gets outputted, the stop, everything based on our definitions. Now next we need to tell our market analyzer window about this this new pattern. So first I'm going to just verify that, make sure that, okay, you see our auto swing pattern finder, it shows that 9th pattern, so that looks good. Going to come down to our market analyzer, right click, go to columns. I'm going to look at, now we need to change, in this particular example, this is the daily, so I'm going to change that one first. But go down to pattern on the daily, scroll all the way down, and we need to add new conditions to make it find that pattern. So if we go down to, I'll cancel out of this, go back down to our market analyzer, and we'll right click and reload the NinjaScript to have it reload what we just gave it. We need to then set up our conditions for these columns to work properly. So I'm going to right click, go to columns. Now we need to go through each of these. You can see here, after I refreshed it, you see how there's a -9 right here? That's showing us that it's hitting our new pattern, and it's using that ID that we looked at earlier, but we needed to not just output a -9. We wanted to output my pattern bearish and have it be red, and that's what we wanted to output right there. So in this case, we go to the pattern column for, in this case, 5 minutes. Scroll all the way down, go to conditions, and we need to create a condition for our new pattern. We need to create a bullish and a bearish condition. So in this case, we'll just click on any of the positive numbers here and click on add. That way it will create a copy of it, so it'll already be set up the way we want with the colors, and simply change this to whatever you called it before. My pattern, give it a value of 9. That's what we looked at the ID from earlier. Now we need to create a bearish version of that, so just click on one of the negative numbers, click on add to make a copy of that, and then say my pattern, -9 is the ID that we're looking for, and so now we have a new condition for that column. So now we need to repeat that process for each of the pattern columns. Now I've gone ahead and set up this automatically with some of the templates out there, so there might already be a 9 set up that says my pattern, so you can just simply go in, let me just back up, click on pattern, go back down to the conditions, and you can just highlight this and change this to whatever name that you actually created, and then repeat that process for the 240 pattern, set up that as well. hit OK, and now you can see now it says my pattern bearish, which reflects this over here, and you can see my pattern bullish over here on the daily, which is what we're looking at here. We can see that we have our T-bar here. We see that it triggered right here, or it hit right there, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars since we first touched it, and that's what this 8 is down here. So we've been 8 bars since we've touched the far edge of our pattern. Now I know this process is a bit complicated, and hopefully this is something that you won't really do that often, but I wanted to go through the process a second time with the second example just to kind of show you the ropes and show you how to go through this. One thing to make clear is after you add a new pattern and after you make a change, be sure to refresh your chart and refresh your market analyzer to make it pick up those changes that you've just made. Also, with any pattern that you create, I can't emphasize enough, but test. Make sure that it is it is a repeating behavior that gives you an edge. If it's a pattern that occurs commonly, that happens a lot on the instrument that you're looking at the time frame that you're looking at, and that it actually is showing a good reversal area, whether it be bullish or bearish. So again, test, and just keep monitoring and take notes and keep a journal, etc., etc. All the good habits of being a successful trader. If you have any questions, please email me at daniel@uppdown.com. That's UPPDNN.com. And best success in your trading.